All right, welcome back. We are WEBD6201. That's client-side scripting at Durham. And it's week 8, part 1 of our broadcast. We're talking about Ajax part 2, but a couple of announcements to make. Just speaking to the class, they're saying that no one's really started lab 2, right? And they're kind of afraid. Some people are afraid of tomorrow's potential test for test number 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to postpone the test. Well, actually, I'm going to give you guys a take-home test that is going to be due on, we'll make it due on Sunday. Okay, so that'll be Sunday, what would that be? Let's look at the calendar here for a second. That'll be Sunday the 8th, right? Sunday the 8th is when this the test will be due. The test will be basically like another assignment, a little assignment that'll be doable within a 2-hour period. Okay, it's not going to be like another big lab that I'm going to make. It'll be like literally like, what if you had this test and you were doing it in class? It'll be geared for 2 hours, a couple of tasks. You'll be able to use a template. Again, I'll probably post a template that you guys can use, and it'll close promptly on Sunday night at midnight. So if you don't get it done, that's on you, right? It's worth quite a bit of marks, 10%. So it's please, make sure when it gets released tomorrow that you get it done, right? And so today, instead of doing a review, and normally I don't record the reviews, I'll continue with Ajax. I'll also give you guys Lab 3 tomorrow. I'll release Lab 3. Lab 3 will be all around Ajax, again, and it'll be due week 9, right? So week 9 is when we're going to have an Ajax test, and when the lab will also be due around the same time. So again, I'm talking about Lab 3 right now because what I'm doing with you guys is going to be what Lab 3 is going to be pretty much about, okay? So Ajax, who remembers what Ajax is about? What is Ajax? I'm not going to even look at a PowerPoint right now. I'm going to have to ask random people now because, how about the guys in the back? I like the guys the guys who are quiet in the back. What is Ajax? Do you guys know what Ajax is? No? No one's willing to put up a hand? How about the girls over in the corner? Hi, yeah, I'm looking at you, right? Yeah, what's Ajax? Don't look it up on Google. Don't Google it. Just tell me what it is. You have no idea. Stephen, what's Ajax? We talked about it before we left. Remember Ajax? Spence? I'm going to go to you guys are like the usual suspects. I gotta hit the usual suspects over here. Heather, anybody?
Asynchronicity, I believe.
Okay, that's one part of it. It's called asynchronous. JavaScript and XML is where it comes from, but we don't use it that way anymore because it's not XML. We use JSON mostly. It's more industry standard these days. We talked about the idea of this request response, and if you look at the PowerPoint, and we're sitting at PowerPoint 50 right now, slide 50 out of 90. We're kind of halfway through. Well, we talked about this like request response system where we have a web page, it sends an XML HTTP request, which is an XHR request, sends it off to the server. It kind of does a, kind of like a loop, and it comes back, right? So it goes out to the server, make a request, and the server does something with that request and responds with data, responds with a web page, responds with whatever, right? And that's what Ajax is pretty much what it does. It allows us to load data into the page without reloading. Without going to the next page, I can load data into the page live, right? And a lot of times is used for things like lists of data, which we're going to be talking about today, how to do that. That's what Ajax is all about. There are several ways to set Ajax up. The one way we're doing it right now is pure JavaScript or vanilla JavaScript, but we can also use jQuery for Ajax, which makes it slightly easier, only because the syntax is shorter. It's a shorthand for how to make things go. Okay, so that's Ajax. Let's take a look at what we did last week. So last week we had a project we were working with, and there's a GitHub project I had up online. It was last week, the week before we went away on break. So that's WEBD6201 lesson 7. I'm just going to make a copy of this. Make a copy of lesson 7, and we're going to make it to lesson 8. I'm going to post this new one on GitHub. Again, all these things on GitHub, when you guys do your labs or tests, they're open. It's open for you guys to use, right? I noticed last time when you guys did your tests and your labs, it's like you didn't look online. All the answers are on GitHub. A lot of times, I've already given you the answers. They're inside the code that I've given you on GitHub, right? So, please take a look at the resources I've given you, because 90% of the answers are there. I would say 95% of the answers are there, really, at the end of the day. All right, so this is lesson 8. And just like we've done before, whenever we open up a new project for a lesson, I'm going to do a couple modifications. One thing is we have to get rid of the remote. So I would do like a git remote remove origin. So we get rid of the old remote. And then we make a new GitHub repo online. So I'll go to GitHub, and then it's Durham Programmer. That's where all your stuff is, Durham Programmer, right? So people who don't know where to look. And notice there was lesson 7. I'm just going to make a new one. We'll just call it the same thing, but lesson 8. Right? Okay, there's lesson 8. Cool. And what I need from that is these last 2 lines of code right here. And if I copy them and I paste them in here and press enter, then we're good to go with lesson 8. Some people had problems with their GitHub as well. And although I've recorded it, I'm not sure people knew what to do, right? Which is troubling. They didn't put comments. Like, we're talking like major loss of marks, eh? No comments, no GitHub. And even though it was worth like, I don't know, GitHub 4 marks, comments another 4 marks. Site structure, someone made up their own site completely. Like they handed in their own stuff. Like they didn't even use my template, like at all. And it was like, okay, and they did inline JavaScript, like really weird stuff that I've never taught, right? So, I mean, there's only so much I can do to guide you guys. Hopefully you guys are following along with what I've asked you to do, right? Okay, so now that we've got that, one thing we have to change, like we've done before, is our package.json. I always try and change this up, and you'll notice that when we hit the Node.js stuff, this is more important to do, because this is kind of your package. These are your dependencies and so on that we're going to be talking about. This site right now, we're using a bunch of pages. This is where we were left off last. And I also have a README file. My README file is saying lesson 7 and lesson 6. We're going to make it lesson 8 and lesson 8. How about that? How about we match what it's supposed to be? How about that? Okay, and that should bring us up to date with what we have. We have a couple more commits, and I'll just say updated to lesson 8. So again, I can add this. You can do like GitHub right here in Visual Studio Code, where I can add everything to the staging area, and I'll say updated project for lesson 8. And then you can click on the little check mark and then go push, and it'll push it up to GitHub. I mean, it's that simple. Okay. So yeah, so that is Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is still pretty much the #1 editor out there for JavaScript developers. Some people choose to use other things like Visual Studio or WebStorm. Still, I think Visual Studio Code ranks higher. Okay, so last we left off when I pressed Control backtick, and let's do a light-server like we normally do. You can see that when we launch stuff, we're here, right? Current projects. If I click current projects, it doesn't really go anywhere. But if I go to products, you can see that I'm starting to load up my widget. Here's my widget A1, widget X, developer X, this small widget creates excitement, la 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 la, and it was the first one I added in right here, right? So how did I do this? Remember, this kind of is where I want it to go. And if I right click and go inspect, and I can look at the console, then what I want is for the console to show me, or for in here to load all the stuff that we've loaded in. We don't have a problem right now, but what are we doing with our JavaScript? So let's take a look. So we have a couple things. We have a contact class that we've used, and now last time we were together, we created an item class. And the item class, these classes are just container classes. That's all they are, to hold the stuff that we're looking at, to make it easier for us to transfer information from our client side to the server side. That's what we're doing. Okay, that's why we use those things. And if I skip down to what we were working on, which was our products content, So here's our products content. Around line 114, if you were following along, right, 114. A couple things we did, right? We made our document title products. We ended up saying that we made a new products array of any. So we kind of created a new container for our products. And I kind of put some steps in here for how to use Ajax, right? So the first step is we create a try-catch. So the try-catch block, what it is anytime you do file handling at all, you load an image from your operating system, or you try and access files, especially with Ajax, you want to wrap it in a try-catch. Actually, this is the truth even for non-JavaScript stuff. If you're doing things with C# or C++, you wrap it in a try-catch, okay? Any kind of file handling or I/O. Why? Because there's no guarantee that you're not going to get null back, something bad, right? Maybe you're disconnecting, or maybe you won't connect properly. So that's the first thing we do. We wrap it in a try-catch. Next, we instantiate this new XHR object. Again, this is all up online for you, right on GitHub, right? So this new XHR object is this XML HTTP request. That's what it is. And I want you guys to think about this as a container object that contains our message. We're going to send a message to the server, and I'm going to contain it in this object, okay? We're going to use an event listener. We're going to attach an event listener to this object, and we're listening for our ready state change, okay? Ready state change, this means that, remember we talked about different pieces or different states? One of them is the ready state. Ready state needs to be 4, right? And one person asked me what the triple equals stands for. Who remembers what triple equals stands for? Yes, Spence.
It's identity check.
It's identity check. Yeah, okay. What else? How else can we say it?
I was going to say exactly like 4, but not like 4.
Exactly equal is really what it is. If you're going to think about this, it's exactly equal to, which means not only does it match the value, but also the type. That's what it is. So where if I put it in quotations, like we said, JavaScript will convert the quotes, a number in quotes, into an integer, a number, or the other way around, right? And both will be equivalent with just a double equal, right? But a triple equals will say, well, I don't know, wait a minute. It's got to be a number type that I'm looking for, or it's got to be a string type, or whatever you're looking for. And that's what the triple equals are. It makes sure that you're getting the right data. So it's an extra guard. All right, so that's number 3. Notice we're not touching this stuff yet. Then we're going to go to number 4. 4, we open up this request. Why? Because this can be anywhere, right? This doesn't have to be here in this order. I mean, I've attached an event listener here, but anything inside this event listener in here can be done inside of a callback function or something else, okay? Cool, so then we're opening up this, kind of a connection, if you will, through the XHR object to a particular file or URL. This could be a URL somewhere online or a local file. In this case, it's a file that's inside of your data folder and your products.json file. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, and then if you notice, if I hover over the open, it says I need some kind of string to connect. Am I using a get or put request or post? What am I doing? The URL. And am I going asynchronous or not? Is it asynchronous or not? And the answer is definitely true. Why? If I made this false, this would be blocking, which means my web page would pause for a second in order for me to load my data, and then it would work. And that maybe is not what we want. We want it to be asynchronous, right? So that way our page is working and it's non-blocking. Typically, we don't want to be blocking. All right, so that's this. And then we send the request to the server, and the server send request is not just send, it also includes other things. I can also send a message body to the server. So sometimes what happens is when we send stuff through a post request, we take the message body that it might include form data, let's say, or something else. We take that form data and we pass it along to the server, and that form data is processed on the server side, okay? So that's the message body itself. And notice it's a string or, let me go back to that, a string or a document or a blob or an array buffer. Those little pipes in the middle are ors, right? Or an array buffer or form data or whatever. That's what it's basically saying, right? And that's what the send does. Send basically sends stuff off to the server. Okay, but here we're not sending anything. We're just making a request to get data. That's why it's a get request. So we're not actually sending a message. Messages are usually sent on the post if I want to send stuff. And we're going to do that after week 10. We'll do a different kind of request. All right, cool. So then that's good. 5, we've done this. And now we're waiting for this to finish. Once ready state is 4 and our status is 200, remember status is like this status where we have, if I looked at the, here, we can see we have status codes right here. So status code 304 is like nothing's changed. Status code 200 in this GET request is everything is okay. Status code 404, that's bad. Something wasn't found, right? Status code 500, you get that? That means like somehow the server failed, right? These are status codes. And what we're looking for is status code 200 and a ready state of 4, which means, hey, everything's gone and done a full kind of cycle. It's gone out to the server and come back. That's what's happened. They've responded and the request has been completed. That's what it means, okay? So once we have both those cases, and notice there's an AND for these two scenarios, once this is done, then we can do stuff. We have this XHR response text. The XHR object has this response text, and the response text is what we get back. What do we get back, right? If I didn't parse it with JSON, then what we get back is just text, a string of data, right? And you couldn't parse that, okay? So what I want to do is I want to JSON parse that data, and then I get back the data. And then what I'm doing is I do a for each loop for each item in the data.products array. I want to push these the new item that we're getting into the products array, which is this array we created up here. Okay? And I probably went too far. There, this array right here. Okay? So this is where we're pushing the data. So the data exists in here. I'm recording it. Do I have to record it? No, I don't. I'm just doing it because I want to show you how to do that. For each item in the array, I want to push it up to this other array. And this is the array on the data. Here, I'm actually pushing it onto another array. Okay? So 7, create new elements and inject them and the data onto the page. We haven't done that part. That's what we're going to be doing right now. All right? So let's take a look at that. We've got some data examples. And in my products.html page, we can see that I have a table. And I've given an example of what the table needs. It needs this table row. It needs some kind of scope with a number. It needs, some things. It needs like a product ID, a product name, spaces for all this stuff. So I want to take this idea, right, and I need to create my code for this. Now this is going back to what we did with the DOM, right? I need to create a table row. That's what this is, a TR, okay? By the way, some people who did their test in their lab that I marked, they made the object, but they didn't append child. That's a bad thing. You need to append child after you make the virtual object, whatever it is, append child. Here's what's another way we can do this. Is there another quicker way to do this without having to create all these other objects? Is there a quicker way, a nicer way to do this stuff? Anyone have an idea? How about creativity a little bit from us today? Because I don't want to go and say like, okay, I want to create this object. I want to create this object, create this object, create this object, create this object, make all these objects, children of this object, make this object the last child of this object. That's a lot of work, right? Is there a quicker way? How about this? Let's copy this, this HTML code and see what we can do with it. So copy this whole HTML code. Let's go back to here and let's paste it and let's see what we got, right? So what I want to do before I paste it is I want to put this backtick stuff in there. Backtick is basically a template string in ES6 and beyond. And if I press Control V to paste, now we have this stuff. Isn't it nice? So what I want is for this to happen in a loop, right? But let's do it the first time. Let's see if we can inject something that looks like this onto the page with data where I want like this stuff in here, okay? So let's do some mock data. I want to attach some stuff. Does anyone remember how to use this as a template string? Remember, the way I did this was I used the backtick character, the character that's sitting underneath your escape key, all right? If you use a regular quote, it will not work, okay? It won't work like this at all, backtick. So remember what we did? We kind of did this thing where we want to make a $ curly brace. For every place that we want data, we want to put the $ curly brace. So for example, we have this products, right? This item that's in the products, and I want to look at a number. Let's just put in a number 1. We can put actual data in there too, right? But for the rest, what I want is I want to take this part. Is this possible that I can do this? I can put in some data, and inside this area here, I want to inject my products. So let's say this is the first product, and I want to look at the ID, right, which is like this product ID, right? That's what that is. So product ID, right? And I want to use the same kind of structure here. I want to show you what we can do here to kind of set this up. So here, this one would be, so the first product, okay, and instead of product ID, we're going to say product name. So product name. And then the same thing goes here. Follow me here for a second what I'm doing, all right? And then this would be the item developer, so developer. And then I'm just going to inject all this stuff. This is going to be the description, right? And finally the price. Okay? Can we not do this? Can I not make something that looks like this? And if I did, right, how would I create this thing? What do I do? I've got some kind of data here. I haven't attached it to anything. It's literally just sitting here, right? I could assign a variable. I could say, like, this is the new data, a new item. We'll call this a new item. So var, or we'll say let new item equal to this. We can do that, right? And what is this thing? Well, when you look at it, it looks just like a string, right? So remember what we could do. We could say that this is inner HTML, right? Inner HTML. And so all we need to do to make this inner HTML and to be reasonable is let's create the TR. That's the only thing we need to create, all right? So we'll attach this as inner HTML of the TR, and we'll attach the TR as the last part of the table body. All right? That's the easy, quick way to do it. So we'll get rid of this. So no TR. We'll leave the little quote up there and the little quote down here, almost like curly braces. I want you to think about this as like a template, okay? Here's our template, curly braces, right? This is our new item, and what I want to do here is I want to create a TR. So I want to say let, new table row, right? We'll say new row equal to document.create element, and I want a table row element to be created. So this is the table row element, right? And the table row element, I have this new item, and I'm going to attach the new item to the table row element. Could I not do this? Could I just not say something like new row dot inner HTML is equal to new item? Can I not do that? Just saying, right? Okay, and if I did this, again, this is just a test. How do I attach this? I want to append child, right? But I need a connection to do that. I need to connect somehow to my item. So if I look at my products.html page, you can see that I have to have something to connect this to. So I have a table that's called table, right? And I have this table body, and the table body is where this stuff is going to be attached to. So let's just add in a thing. We'll call this the table body or products body. So ID is equal to, call it the products body, right? Products body. And what I can do, going back to my app.js, is get a reference to it. And I'll do that here. Again, let products body equal to document.getElementById products body. Well, you can also use jQuery for this, right? And what I want to do is I want to do a couple of attachments. One, let's attach this new item like we did here, and let's attach our table row. So we'll say that products body append child, and then we want this new row. Would that not be the case? Could we not just do something like this? So again, steps. One, we get a connection. We hook into our products body, right? Because remember, in our products.html, we have an area, a section where my T body, this is the element that we're hooking into, and we're adding in additional table rows. That's what TRs are, right? Okay, so that's what we want. And by the way, look, it did it. I mean, I don't have to check. It worked, right? Same data. Let's get rid of this one now, and you can see that if I get rid of the one, the actual one, this is actually HTML. I don't want HTML to be here, right? I want, if I save it, you can see that I only have one. That is actually coming from my data now. That's not coming from me. I'm actually injecting that code onto the page. Does that make sense? Stephen, you're giving me that look that you normally give me where you scrunch up your eyebrows like this. All right, no problem. I just want to make sure you're good, right? So does that make sense? Is that understandable for you guys? So what I'm doing is, again, step one. So I hook into it like normal. Step two, you make an element that we want to connect to, right? Step three, we use template string, which is awesome. I don't have to go and connect all these different things. This is a shortcut for us. I mean, I could do this the long way. Absolutely. You can sit there and go, all right, let's make a new create element th. Cool. I want to have a scope row and some kind of number in here. All right. So how do I make use of this thing now if I want to include all the data from my products table? A loop, right? So I'll loop it. Okay, so we don't have to do this. This doesn't have to be done. But here, we should probably make this inside of a loop. We're going to do the same thing we did before for each item in the products array. So we're going to say for each, right? And I'm going to talk about the products array for each item. For each item in the products array, this item here for each one. And I want to do all this work here. I'm going to cut this. I'm going to go inside here and paste it, right? And let's just space it out a little bit nicer so we can see how this works. Obviously, we don't want to do product 0 anymore. We want to do item, this item. We want to replace products with item. So we're going to say something like, okay, so this will be item, like this. We could also do a for loop if you're interested in doing that. Actually, let's just do that instead. Sorry. A for loop might work best in this case, and I'll talk about why. So you can totally do that, what I was just doing. Or, sorry, let's make this a for loop. That might be best. And I'll talk about that because you also have an item. You also have this item number, which might be best. Instead of me having an extra counter, I can just use a for loop in here instead. All right, so it's not array.length, it's products.length. That's what I want in here. We can get rid of this const element stuff, and we can just drop in this entire part right here inside the for loop. And then what we also do is just in here where it says 0, we replace that with index. So we say index, right? And then this is index 2. Now this starts at 0, so we're going to say index plus 1 for this one, right? Okay, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So how does it look? It should be like this now, right? We should see all the items come down the pipe, right? Why? It's reading everything inside of our document. That's what's happening. And it's loading it in and putting it inside of data table. All right? Questions around this? Yes?
So for the for each, are you not able to do like item plus 1?
Yeah, you can. The reason why I didn't want to do that, not item plus 1, because item is the whole item, right? So you'd have to have a separate counter for that, like count, and then equals 0 or 1, and then count plus plus every single time you add one, and then you can add it in. Here, a for loop just makes more sense because you already have an iterator, so why would you make a new one, right? Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I prefer for each loops. They're better with collections in some ways, but you know, simpler is always better in my mind, right? Notice also I've spaced out this thing. A lot of times you want to do this, eh? You want to space out your template string, and that's what this is. So this is make use of a template string. This is all good for ECMAScript 2016, 2017, 2018. All the new stuff is done like this, right? Typically, we don't want to create multiple items. I mean, theoretically, I could have made this a TR and attached it to my product body as well, but it's okay. Are we good? Is that enough for everybody to understand how to inject? This is injecting data, all right? And remember, we can add data dynamically. So if I go to my, under my data, I have a data folder now. On my data folder, I can go to products.json. And if I want to add another piece of data, and let's just add another piece of data in here. So let's add another book or movie or something, right? Sure. And let's, instead of Star Wars, I don't know, the product will be like, I don't know, A4, and I'm making this up, so I don't know, maybe a show that I've watched lately. I am not okay with this on Netflix. Pretty good show, right? Weird, but I like it. And the developer will say Netflix, right? Sure. And description. A weird show about a girl with superpowers. Girl with superpowers. I recommend it, and we'll say the costs, we'll make this the cost, I don't know, 99 cents. Yay. And if I do that, you can see that it automatically adds that in, right? So, or does it? Okay, so did I save it? Let me go back. Oh yeah, I have to refresh. There we go. Why? Why do I have to refresh? Because it read in the last one, right? And this doesn't automatically push, to our site. We have to wait for something else to get that done, and we're going to do that hopefully with some of the things that we're going to be doing with Node.js. So notice I can add a new item, and it just automatically adds to the list. Next time I come and load the page, it's here. And that's what we do nowadays. We have an item that's on the database, and next time you come in here, it just spits out new JSON data, and then I'm good to go. I have my new item, right? So questions around this? Yeah. All right, so that is in my app.js. It's not working. Yeah, this is it right here. So. Let me put this up on GitHub, and then you can see it from there, okay? So on GitHub, I'm just going to add all this up there. I'm going to say used Ajax to inject data onto products page. You got it, Steven? Did I not do that? Did I stage everything? I did stage everything. What does it say? Oh, save all and commit. There we go. All right, so that should be up on GitHub in a sec. And so that you have that change. Okay, cool. So far, that's kind of the easy stuff we've talked about, right? Really, you read stuff from a file. You have a file. Here's your data file. You can add more items in this file. And notice we have a schema. So a schema, I got to talk about that a little bit. In order for me to have a structure on the page, the structure should be similar, right? For each item. Each record, if you will, just like it was in a database, requires kind of the same structure in order for it to be on the page. If I have different structure, then when I load stuff in, if I deserialize, okay, I want to talk about serializing and deserializing for a second. Really, we're not encoding anything, but imagine that this is encoded data for a second, right? So this encoded data is sitting on the server somewhere. Right now, in this case, it's just sitting on your machine, okay? But imagine I'm serializing the data. I'm encoding it so that way I'm using JSON to describe what the data is. That's what I'm doing here. So I've got my product name, my product ID, and all that stuff, and it's structured in a way, whether I'm using JSON or XML, so that way we can recognize what it is. Okay, that's what it is. But it needs a certain format. Notice it has the exact same structure. This is called a schema, right? So do I have to do it this way? No. I can make each record different, each document in the database, if you will. So imagine this is a document, right? This is another document, and so on. Each of the documents are part of the products collection. That's what it is. Think about the products as a collection, right? Doesn't have to be an array. It's a collection, right? And this collection of products has a bunch of documents. I can also have sub-documents, which means I can have another property that is a document of documents, right? For example, let's suppose I wanted to make a relation. Like, this item had other related items. Like on Netflix, if you go up on Amazon, frequently bought together, and you see like a bunch of little items that are frequently bought together. It's just another document, a sub-document that comes up inside the database, right? So we can certainly do that. But at the end of the day, if you want it to appear properly on your page, the page must be able to support that kind of data. And the way we've set it up is we've set it up with these table headers, which means that that's the kind of structure that data must have in order for it to fit inside of my page. Otherwise, you're going to get some data that's not fitting into the page or truncated or lost, right? Okay, cool. So that's this part. I just want to go back to this. So we were at page 50, and I want to make sure I cover most of the stuff we're talking about with Ajax. So we talked about this basic structure, which we've kind of hit a couple times, and we do this, full circle. We kind of go out, come back from the server, right? One thing we have to think about is we don't just have to return. We don't need to just return JSON data. Okay, so I make an Ajax call and I return some data back, but it doesn't have to be just data. It could be anything that I want. For example, it could be HTML, right? It could be HTML. So what if, just putting it out there, right? What if I wanted to inject my navbar, right? I want to inject my navbar onto the page. Instead of me having to put different navbar every single time, right? I want to load HTML from my page. Not JSON data, but something else. Am I capable of doing that? Let's see. So again, this is talking about formats. So data formats, I can use XML. Here's XML. We talked about HTML, and this is something we can do as well. Notice that I can use this kind of formatting. I can make this HTML, and I can load HTML or JSON data from the page. So any one of these things is totally fine to use, right? So imagine if I have this HTML the way it is, as is, and I want to load this data into my page. Could I do that? Just putting it out there, right? The answer is yes. Let's do a test for doing this now. This is the next part of our Ajax quest, right? So we have a problem, right? Our page, when we look at our structure of our site, I have a bunch of pages: about, contact, index, login, all these other things, right? And every single one of these pages has the exact same data, right? For example, this main nav is the exact same on every page, pretty much. And I've got this duplication from one page to the other. And really, the only thing that's different is the content area. The content area is really the stuff that I want to inject, right? If you think about it, I have the other page. I can create a template, right? And my template could be the exact same every single time, right? Or I could do it the other way around. I can have a navbar in a separate file, and I can have a, kind of the footer in a separate file. And then I can construct a page together with those piece parts, including my content, right? By smashing it together with Ajax. So I want to kind of like take those pieces, use Ajax, load them up, and then inject them into the page at runtime. Okay? So there's different approaches. You can use a whole template. I can make a template so that I have my navbar and my footbar, and then I just inject my main content. And this would present a different way of doing things than the way I'm doing it right now. It would restructure my entire application. So I would use only one page. Okay. So that means that instead of having all these pages about, contact, index, and so on, what I'd want to have is almost like these, like a template. I'd have a template page that I load up, right? And then I take that template page and I inject the content that's in there, and I serve that up as index.html. Maybe I even use index.html as my template, right? Now, sometimes I can't use the same template. Sometimes I might have something different on my page, and that's okay, right? But for the most part, I can have one page to do it all. Okay. So then all I need to do, if that's the case, is the About page, which has the exact same stuff up here, right? Everything's the same, except for this part, right? This part right here. This is the only part that needs to live on my About page now. Does that make sense? My About page is only this. And I take this stuff and I inject it into my content. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a main content area, right? And anything that's inside the main content area, which is right here, this part right here, is going to be injected as a template string inside of my page. Okay? So when I click that button and I go to my About page or whatever, I'm not actually doing that. I'm using the same page and I'm just loading content. I'm injecting content into that page by clicking that button, which means I'm going to override what's happening with the regular button clicks that I'm doing on my nav bar. My nav bar is actually going to do something else. Instead of it going the way it is right now, where it actually goes to different places, for example, my nav bar is going to my index.html and blah, 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 blah. No. It's not going to happen anymore. Instead, these links are going to be hashtags, right? But when I click on all these links, I'm going to have events that I'm going to be able to handle. So when I click on my home link, as an example, it's going to inject my index.html content. When I click on my products link, it's going to inject my products.html content, and so on. Does that make sense? Yeah.
You're not going to have like a unique URL.
No, I won't.
Isn't that weird?
That's what most pages do now, believe it or not. When you go somewhere, I can change the URL to say whatever I want, right? I can modify the page, whatever you see on the URL, I have full control, remember? When you go to a page, what's really happening is I have full control over what you do. If you come to my page, you're actually coming to my application. That's how it's dangerous. When you go to someone else's page, you don't know what they are. I can track your mouse position, your mouse movements. I can track what you click on, what you look at pretty much, right? And I can do whatever you're doing on that page, I have full control. As long as JavaScript is active, which 90% of the time now it is, right? So this is a way of doing things, definitely, all right? The other way is the other way, all right, which is I have each of my pages, and each of my pages injects my nav bar and injects my bottom nav. That's another way of doing it. PHP is a fan of doing it that way, right? And actually, so is Node.js. Node.js does it that way, where we have our partial pages. That's what they are, and we're called them partials. Inside the partials folder, we have two files. We have a nav bar, or a top and a bottom, basically is what it is, right? Let's do that, because it's easier, right? All right, so I want to make a new folder, and we also have all these pages, too. This is another thing, right? All these pages here out in the root, it's okay. We can totally do this. But a lot of times people set all this up in a views folder. So let's restructure a little bit. Okay, so first I want to make a new folder. And we're going to call this folder views. By the way, when I start making views and I have my content and I have my scripts, right? It's almost like I'm going towards this pattern of model view controller pattern, right? Where I have my model, which is a connection to my data, my views, which is me presenting my data, and my controller, which is a logic that connects my data, connects to my server, and passes my data from the server to my view. Okay, model view controller, which we're going to be talking about week 10. So imagine if I wanted to take all these pages here and put them inside views. I'm going to have some rewriting to do. Okay, but let's just try it. So I'm going to kind of, control click each of the pages, my login page, my products page, my projects page, my register page, services page, except for my index.html. That's got to be on the root. You can't move that around, okay? But these ones here, I'm just going to drag and drop inside my views folder. So I'm just dragging it in here. And then it says, are you sure you want to move the following 7 files into views? Right? And the answer, yeah, I do. But there's a reason for why it's asking, because I got live links. Now, here's a question for you. Is Visual Studio Code smart enough to rewrite the links for you in the pages? That would be nice, right? And in fact, if you notice now in my About page, it's not, right? That'd be perfect though, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be awesome if it just rewrote all the links? And especially with this node module stuff, like, is this all going to work still? This is all a problem now, right? We're going to have to rejig our application. All right, so we have our index.html, and if I was to if I go back to my index.html now, so if I go back to my website, oh man, look, I got cannot get, right? Well, yeah, because all of our stuff is rerouted, right? So if I click on like my products page, it's going to go wham, doesn't know where to go anymore, right? But remember, we're not going to go to a products page and stuff like this, right? Okay, well, we will, but okay, so that's kind of what we're doing. We got our index.html. Index.html has this stuff, right? And I have all this content. This is okay, but I have these partial files right here. Let's put them inside of views. I want to make another folder right now called partials. All right, and again, there's a couple ways to do this, right? I want to have my header partial and a footer partial. My header will include everything, including my main nav. By the way, you can make it 3 partials: my header, my main nav, and my footer. All right, you can make it 4 partials: my header, my main nav, my footer, and my JavaScript. Somewhere that's going to have to be in place too, right? JavaScript. How do I connect to it? If there's nothing connected, how do I connect to my JavaScript in the first place, right? So I can do that. For now, let's make it so that my header is the one that's connected to the top of my page. I'm just going to right-click and make a new file. And we're going to call this header.html. Here's my header.html. And I'm going to just cannibalize my index.html by taking everything at the top of my page, but not including my main content. So all this, including my doc type and everything, this whole part. Okay? Okay, actually, let's just be a little bit less aggressive for a second before I do that, right? Let's grab just my main nav, all right, and show you how this works first. So just grab this, my main nav, cut it. I don't have a main nav anymore. I'm going to plop it into my header.html, all right, like this. Okay, separate file. Are we good? Okay, mission. I want to be able to do 2 things. One, I want to be able to inject my main nav now, the way it is, onto my index.html page, right? So a couple ways to do this. Main nav can fit inside of a header element. Let's do that. So make a header element. We need to prep a little bit. And in my header element, let's call this like, I mean, again, there's only one header on my page. I do have a footer on my page, but this header is where everything's going to go. I could make this main header. Let's make an ID of main header. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to use emit for this. Main header, right? Let's just keep it together so it looks like this. So main header is where I'm going to inject the data. Okay? Right now, if I go back to my page, no navbar. Okay? Cool? So now, in my app.js, when I go to my index.html, which is when I display my homepage content for now, again, this is relevant for now. I'm going to go to definition. And it says that, okay, here's my homepage content. My projects button is going to be displayed and blah, blah. And yeah, this is cool, but I want to do that whole XHR thing again, right? Because now it's something new. So how do I do this? I'm just going to cannibalize this project a little bit. By the way, the reason why I made a separate, GitHub projects is for this exact reason, right? So that way, worst case scenario for your lab, you can always go back to, week 7, and it's not going to affect what I'm doing here, okay? Because week 7 has most of the stuff you need. Week 6 is for jQuery. Okay, so again, what I want to do is, again, I've injected some stuff on my page. I want to get rid of some of this stuff, like my fading in and fading out of my projects button. That was just something we did with jQuery. Let's just get rid of everything except for this part. All right, so I don't care, on the document title. So I'll get rid of all this. So I'll clean it up a little bit. I want to get a reference to my main nav. So I'll say let main nav, right? Or main header, right? Because that's what it's called, right? We called it main header, if I'm not wrong. Main header equals to document.getElementById main header. So we're hooking into it. We need to do this. Because remember, we're going to inject stuff in there, right? And I need to get that try catch going. Try catch. Remember step 1, try catch? So this is step 1. I need to make an XHR object, right? So I want to make a XML HTTP request object. That's what that is. So this is step 2, right? Make a request object. Are we still on track? We don't have to care for the error, but if I want to leave the error there, we can. What's the next step? Without looking, what's the next step we need to do? So first we made this, a try catch. So wrap everything in a try catch, right? Step 2, make the object. So create or instantiate an XHR object. That's what we want to do. And then we want to make an event handler, right? Step 3. Attach an event handler. Or an event listener, sorry. So we do XHR.add event listener, right? And we're listening for the ready state event. And is it ready state or ready state change? I think it's ready state change event. And let's just make sure. I'm just doing this from the top of my head. Yep, it is. And I know why it didn't fire, because I didn't put new. Need to make a new object. Yeah, so then what I want to do is I want to use some kind of function for this. So I'm going to say function, right? This is an inline function that does this. And I want to check to see what the status, right? Just like we had before, I'm checking to see this. If my XHR ready state, I'll just copy this part right here. If this is the way it is, right? I'm checking to see if this is the next part. And notice this is kind of what we need to do, right? So when everything is ready, then I want to look at that XHR response text. So let's print that out. So say like console log XHR.response text. Okay, and I want to see what I get. What do I get with that? Okay, so I loaded it up. This is what I'm going to get, but we're not done. Down in here, we have to say XHR, and we want to open, and we want to set up what are we opening with. We're going to do a GET request. We need a URL. It's going to be the right place, which is ./data/ and then it's not data actually. It's views /partials /header.html, and then it's asynchronous. Finally, xhr.send be a final thing, and this would be step 4, right? Code your request. That's what this is. Step 5, send the request to the server. Step 6, you're listening for your request. Listening. This is the step 6 stuff. Step 6, is in here. Do something with the data. Right? We have data, let's do something with it. Okay, so that's how it works. So let's see what this is doing. Do we have any problems? Do we get an error? What do we get? Right? Let's go back. So this is my site, and if I go inspect, and if I go to console, then we get a bit of an error. Let's see what happens. So it says landed in a page that is not defined. app.js82, right? Page switcher. So we actually threw an error, right? We landed in a page that is not defined. So how's that possible? Because we're trying to go somewhere that we haven't been before. That's what it's doing, right? So that's what's happening. So how does that work? Why did that happen, first of all? Okay, because that's something that's happened now. Okay, well, let's take a look at our code and define what that is, because that's our error. This is us. We made that error happen, right? I don't know if you guys remember, but we had this area here where we said, let's do a console error that says landed in a page that's not defined. If case, what are we looking for? My page name, right, is index or products or services or whatever. And how is that possible? Because I'm saying that page name is of substring, is the name of the object, substring, and then it says of 1, name length -5 index. So what I'm looking for actually is when I go to my main page, that it should say index.html, right? That's what it should be. All right, it says uncaught cannot set property class name of null. That's on 92. So, okay, so it says I want to display my home page content. And why is that happening? Let's take a look. So did I go to the wrong place to mess things up? No? Yeah, so it says, okay, this is totally cool. It says, well, this is good. Go to my display this thing and then set it to nav item active, but this doesn't exist yet. Home doesn't exist because this was on my nav. My nav doesn't exist, so this is erroring out. So let's just comment this out for now. All right? If I go back and I look at my page again, inspect, my console, now we see all the data. This is my nav bar. We're printing it out. We're actually seeing the data from my HTML. Are we good so far? We're reading the HTML, no problem. Okay. So we know from before there's this thing that is Parse Jason, right? Parse.json. And is there a way of parsing HTML, or can we just use HTML and call it inner HTML? Yes.
I didn't see what you did to get rid of that.
Sure.
Error.
We'll say nav bar.
The dot class name.
Sorry. So I just comment that out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for now. So nav bar is this XHR HTML request, right? And notice I can use parse, right? Just like I did down here, I want to use this JSON.parse. JSON.parse makes it data. Can I use HTML.parse? Is that possible? Well, the answer is no, and you don't need to do that, right? There is no HTML parse, right? I mean, it says a date string, but that's not what I want. It doesn't make any sense that this is what I want. What I want to do is I want to say that navbar is equal to the response text, right? And what I want to do is I want to inject this thing as an object in the inner HTML of my main header. Let's see if that works. So I'm going to say that, okay, main header dot inner HTML is equal to navbar. Okay? Now we want to do this, by the way, inside of here. Definitely. Or else we'll have issues. Cool? Let's see if it works. So, yeah, right? Made the navbar, right? And we did that from a file. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. If we can do this every single time, I don't have to reinvent my navbar every single time. I can have my navbar in a file. If I want to change my navbar, I can change my navbar on all the pages, right? As opposed to just like in every single page, I got to go through and change my navbar. That's just a pain, right? All right. This is cool. I like it. We're almost there. Let's take this document.getElementById now, and we'll get rid of this and put it down in here where it belongs, in my nav bar. There it is. And now we'll uncomment it out and see if we can get this home to have this nav item active. And now as you can see, it glows nice and white, right? Like we would go with our home. Yeah? Make sense? We can still do the same thing. Now we're going to talk about some other things. So here we've got our page, but I want to start injecting stuff onto my page. I want to get that other data that I have in those other pages, right? Got the other data. I want to replace my data with what I have right now with the other data that I'm going to get from somewhere else. I could do a couple things. I could go to each page, like I said, or I could just retrieve the data from each of the pages and inject it into my page by what I click on the nav bar. So if I go to my header.html, this is obviously wrong now. Okay? To test this, if I was to load these things, what it should be is my products, services, about, contact, and login. They should be in different places. It should be under, the different folders, right? I can use a slash, but remember, if I use slash,
you gotta go to the views folder, then slash.
I could do that, right? I could do views slash. Is it views slash, or is it /views slash? Right? So if I did this, /views slash, and I put that in there, notice I'm only updating this, right? What I need to do now is refresh this, because remember, it's only going to refresh only update when it refreshes. If I click on products now, we'll go there, but we're missing stuff. It loaded. It went there. But now what happened? Well, what happened was, if we did this, it's trying to find other parts to my page. For example, let's go to that page. I went to my products.html, right? And if you remember what products.html, we have a bit of a problem now since we put it in there. In my products.html page, here it is. Notice that we have this stuff, /node modules. That's no good no more, right? / means it's inside the same place, right? This doesn't work. Make sense? So yeah, right? That's not how we're going to do it anymore. What we're going to do instead is, I don't want any of this stuff. I'm not going to duplicate. I just want each one of these little pages to have its own little content. I'm going to use my index.html as my template page, and I'm going to inject all this content in there, right? So I don't have these errors that I have here. So, and a little bit of massaging. So please don't panic. We can always go back. We have a GitHub. If we mess up, we can always go back to the previous version of our site. But it's major renovations we got to do right now. Here's my renovation. Ready? Can't get rid of this. This is my products page now. And I want you to think about this main content for a second. We may have to come back. I don't need any of this, so this is gone. All right, so I've got all this. This is the only thing in my products page. Let's do the rest. Let's do them all like this, okay? So again, my about page, I'm going to get rid of everything except for my main content, which is this part right here. So let's get rid of that. And same thing with all this. So we're just cleaning up right now. Yeah, I'm leaving the formatting. I don't care about the formatting too much, because the formatting won't matter at the end of the day, right? So save that one. Save my products page, right? Here's my projects. All right, do the same thing there. Get rid of everything except for that. I really haven't used my projects page at all. I probably don't need to do this, but it's okay. And save that one. Go to my register page. Same with this one. Register is kind of funny, and it only appears when I need it, but we may have to make another template for this one altogether. I don't want to get rid of it because we're going to use my register page again, but this part we don't need. Okay. And my services page. Again, all this stuff can go. Now look at all the duplication we're getting rid of, guys. That's a lot of duplication, right? Remember what I said to you guys? If there's duplication, right, that means there's an opportunity for us to make it better, right? There's always an opportunity for us to improve things, okay? I'm just going to go back and clean some stuff up now. just going to make this so it's aligned right, just for completeness. That's all I'm doing. I'm also giving you a chance to do your thing, right? So that way you can do what I'm doing. All right. Okay, this one is a funny one, the login page, but we'll get to it. So we're doing a major renovation is what we're saying here, right? Okay, there we go. Login, contact, same thing with this. We didn't get rid of this part. Let's just get rid of this. Contact page was interesting because we did our contact form, right? And that's what we did there. All I'm doing is just straightening it out so we can load it in. But we're good. Okay. Just going to go through it all and check. We got everything in there. Make sense? All right, and we're just going to save all because just in case, I like to save all just to make sure that cancel. Make sure that we saved everything, and then I'm going to close everything up, all my documents, and so we can start. All right, cool. So we got lots of changes, right? Yeah. I highlighted everything and then press Shift Tab, and I just move everything over. All right, so yeah, so this is my index.html, but I have some stuff in here, right? In my main header, I have some stuff, right? And I want to replace this stuff on load. I want to replace the stuff that's in my main container, right, with other stuff. And my main content right now has a main, right, and I have a main content container. There's some strategies here. One strategy is I make a div tag, right? I have a main right now, and I want to inject, instead of destroying what I've got here, right, I want to record this stuff right here. I want to record this stuff somewhere in another page, right, and then inject the new stuff. I could do that, right? Because my index.html really is like a home page. So let's make a new page. So under views, make a new page. We're going to call this home.html. And I'm just going to grab the main content from my index.html, cut it out, and put it inside my home page. If I can spell it properly. How about spell it like home instead of like humped? There we go. Okay, there it is. So I got my home page. That's where this content's going to be, right? And there's my index.html. Index.html now is missing something in there where I want to inject that part, right? So let's think about this. We've got we can put a div tag. I used a main like thing. I could just put main content in there and then delete the other ones. And that might be the best thing to do, to be honest with you. For completeness, what we should have done is this main, we can turn this into, we just can delete it from each of the pages. Again, this is a little bit massaging, so bear with me while we do this, okay? And then just put that in here, okay? So we can just go here and go main. And what I want to do is with this main content container, that's where I'm going to inject my content, okay, in the main container. And in my index, in my home page, I want to get rid of anything to do with main. And again, I'm just going to just reformat this so that way I don't have anything but this stuff. I'm going to do the same thing for these. Sorry, guys. Okay. It won't take but a second more. It's more massaging. because it makes sense to do it, right? That's why I'm doing it. I'm not trying to do it because I want to give us more work to do. Because I'm of the mind that I want to do as little work when it comes to this stuff as I can, right? I want to make it so that the ID works for me or the editor, and we kind of do the little work as possible. But sometimes it's required, right? Especially when we're reformatting a whole site like this. By the way, like I said to you guys before in a brief, I said that, hey, you know what? All the main frameworks do this. The frameworks all do this kind of work, right? AngularJS, React, all of them do the same kind of thing. They inject, code. They use Ajax or something like it to have a single page application, which is what we're making, right? And they inject the code in the page based on the thing that's been clicked. All right, cool. Almost done. Reformatted all that stuff. Okay, let's start with the home page, right? Because that's the first thing I want to inject. I want to inject the home page content, which is this, when I go to the home page. Okay? How do I do that? Let's save everything first. Close all the other documents and go back to my app.js. Okay. So now we're going to get into a bit of trouble here, right? This page switcher that we used so much nicely before is going to be obsolete. Why? We're only going to really have one page, right? My index.html. And whether it's the index.html or nothing, some other case, the page name is not going to have a page name at all, right? What we want to do is we want to be able to get this content served to us in a different way. So first things first, let's get rid of this switch case, which is going to be a bit of a challenge, right? Because the switch case served us nicely before. We don't need it anymore. Okay? So page switcher is going to be, when we go to start, we go to page switcher. And page switcher right now, we're going to keep it just so it's there. But really what's going to happen is our page name, right? Notice what it says, add a class of active to the active link to the page, right? Whatever that active link is, hashtag plus page name, right? And we're going to add a class of active. I'm not sure we're going to do that anymore, right? Because notice we kind of did that down here. We said nav item active to the page name, to the home page, right? We're tapping into the home page and we're making it active. So we don't have to do this part anymore, okay? We do want the page name for a second because I want to be able to kind of say that when we load, I just want to load the display homepage content. So for now, I'm just going to keep that part there, but I'm just going to call display homepage content here. Okay, just for now. Okay, it's just that it's not broken. Again, I really don't need the page switcher anymore at all, right? Because I'm not doing that stuff anymore. All right, so yeah, I injected this with a ready state change of this. I got my nav bar, right? And I want to load more stuff. How do I do multiple XHR requests? We haven't done that before. We've done a single XHR request, right? We've got an XHR object right here. We've got a try catch, and then we do our thing, right? But now I want to do multiple XHR requests. I want to do an XHR request for my navbar. Then I want to do another XHR request for my main content. Finally, maybe an XHR request, which we haven't done yet, for my footer, right? So what do we do? Curiously, we cannot use one, right? We can't use one because this part right here, which is this try-catch stuff, right? This is only for the navbar. That's what this is. So I'm going to make a new function, right? Let's make a function. We're going to call this load main nav. Okay? And I'm going to grab all this stuff, right? And all this stuff right here. up until including the bottom of the catch, cut it, and I'll put that inside my main nav. Just organizationally, it's just better. So load main nav. When I go to my display homepage content, I'm going to load my main nav. Load main nav. Right? And to test this to see if it's okay, we should be able to go to my home page now. And we can load my main nav. That works. Okay? So that's load main nav. Okay, cool. But now what I want to do, I want to do the same thing. I want to load my content. Load my page content, my home page content, right? So again, I want to call something called load home page, right? You're going to see where we're going to go with this, right? I don't have that yet. Let's make it. So there's load main nav. And we're going to say function load homepage. And I want to do all this again. Right? No, man. That's wrong. I don't want to do this thing again. This is wrong. I want to be able to do this. I want to make a function that's a loader, right? That I'm going to pass the page I want to load, the content that I want to load. I want to be able to pass that stuff in there, and it's going to do the work for me. That's what I want. And where is it going to inject that stuff, right? Because if I did this, then I'd have to make a new one of these, like over and over again. I'm going to have even more duplication. Instead of duplicating on the HTML side, I'm going to be duplicating on the JavaScript side. That doesn't make any sense. So this is neat, right? This is neat, this load main nav stuff, right? But let's make it, we can do better. Okay, we can do better than this. We don't want to do load page content, load home page. We don't want that right now. Not yet. Bear with me. Instead of this, I want to call forth another function. Let's rename this function to something else. We'll rename the symbol where we say load, we'll say load page content. Load page content. That's what it'll be called. Load page content will take a couple things. One, it'll take where I'm hooking into, right? The place that I'm hooking into. So this will be a parameter up here. We'll call this the, kind of like the element that I'm going to inject into. I don't know, you want to call it the, target element. Okay, that's the first part. My target element is where I'm going to be injecting. So this part here is going to be the target element. Okay, so that's where I'm going to be injecting the stuff in my target element. Okay, and then I need some place to load this. This stuff right here where I load, when I create my XHR request, I have this URL, right, that I'm loading, this URL. Okay, cool. So my URL is going to be next. So that almost like my, file path, right? And so this is going to be file path down in here. File path. Okay? We're making it more generic here, right? This part, document, get element, home, blah, 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 we can't really do because there's a couple things here, right? It's the name of the item, the name of the page, right? Whatever that name of the page is that we want to hook into, right? So again, we can parameterize this. We can say load page content, target element, file path. We could also make it the name of the page. Page name would be the first thing, so we'll call this page name. You can be strategic here, right? And this will be in here, page name. Okay? So far, so good? So this way, what we'll do is we'll reuse our item, right? Our page, and we'll just use these parameters, page name, target element, and file path, right? To send the right page information in here. Okay, that's what I want to do. Okay. So this is our nav bar. That was our nav bar, right? Because we had loaded our nav bar, right? And now we're not loading our nav bar anymore. We're loading our page contents. And what is it? So what is the name of the page? The name of the page is home, right? And then it says we need a target element. What's our target element that we're injecting stuff in? Because this first part, we're injecting our nav bar, right? So what is it? Main header, if I'm not wrong, right? So main header. And then our file path, // right? Where is our main header? Inside of our views, inside of our partials, inside of header.html, right? Again, I'm parameterizing everything, right? Let's see, can we do this? Is this okay? Does this work? First of all, are you with me? Okay. And does it work? Yeah, we're good to go, right? It's also highlighted. Look, this is all good too, right? And this says the right thing too, WEBD6201 home. Next, I want to do the load page content again, right? Let's do it again. Damn it. Load page content. This time it's going to go to the home page, right? It's going to go to the home page. And this is interesting. I want to load, instead of the main header this time, I'm going to load inside my main content. And the data that I'm going to load is ./views/home.html. Okay, we're going to run into some problems. So I'm doing this again, right? Second time in a row I've gone in here, and then I'm setting it active. Is that okay? Can I set it active a couple times? Yeah, I guess. I'm not happy with that, but I mean, it'll suffice. It's not going to hurt anything, setting it active. I'm just going to keep setting it active, right? All right, so this is going to inject my home page content into my main content area. Let's see if that works. We're good to go, right? See how that works? So now we have generic things that work this way. Now these things don't work, right? Not yet, but they will. Next, let's do the same thing with my footer, right? So again, I don't have that. I don't have a footer, but we have inside of our views, we have a partials page. We can make a new thing, new file. We'll call it a footer.html. There it is. And my footer.html is going to be very similar to what we've already seen. So I'm going to go back into my index.html. And instead of having this footer right here, which is the exact same, I'm just going to cut this part out of here. Actually, let's undo this. All I want is this part. Go back into my footer and inject it. Now you might not think this is important, but actually it can be very powerful what we're doing. Okay? Here we're going to give our footer a ID of main footer. And now this is our template page. Nice and beautiful, right? It's starting to form up. And tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to make it more generic. So we're going to finish off our single page application, right? All right, how does this work? Well, going back to my code, then we use the same pattern. What we want to do is we want to say that I want to hook into that same thing. So here's my display content, home page content, except that we're going to say load page content, home, and then we want to go into the target element, which is my main footer. That's where it's going to go into, followed by the URL for that, ./views/partials/footer.html. We go back, it's there. Okay, question around this stuff. You know, it's pretty straightforward stuff if you think about it. But the problem with this is it can introduce additional challenges for us. So, can anyone think about additional challenges that we might have because of what we've done? There are going to be challenges. Yes. Got to do that, but there's only a few of them, right? These are the file paths that I have, and they're relative, so it's okay, relative path. What other problems might we have? What have we told Ajax to do? Yeah.
So loading it like at random times.
They're loading at random times. They are not loading in when we think they're loading in. So we have to wait. That's why it's very important that anything we have in this page content, I mean, it's got to be like, we got to make sure that the stuff that's happening in our page content is like exactly where it's supposed to be. I cannot do other things in here. If I expect my stuff to load, right, I got to wait till one thing is loaded before the other thing. Now, I could make it blocking. Let me show you what blocking looks like. So let's suppose I want to make it blocking. So my load page content, instead of it being my, my open is true, I can make my open false. Okay? And now this is not recommended. But if I did this, and if I refreshed, it's going to refresh in the exact same order every time. Now it's going to wait. This will not trigger until this is done, right? This is not going to trigger until this is done, right? And this is okay, but please be aware, if you made it false, that it's going to block. If one thing doesn't load, it's going to wait until it loads, okay? Other problems are on my page. I'm just going to undo that change. On my page, if I want to manipulate something with JavaScript on my page, that's going to be a challenge now, right? Because I don't know when that page is loaded, right? Make sense? I don't know when that page content is finished loading. Before that page content finishes loading, can't do anything, right? In fact, what I need to do is from that page content, I need to trigger an event that says, I'm done loading. Now that I'm done loading, do something. You can do something else, like almost like another callback, okay? So this is a good start, but now what we have to do is, and I want to leave this for tomorrow, right? And I'll put this up on GitHub for you guys, right, for tomorrow, is the next part is this. If I go into my views and I go into my header, here's my header for my nav bar. Well, so far what I've been doing is I'm saying, hey, you know what? These are the links for this stuff, but this is not going to be the link anymore, right? I'm going to click on these things, my product, services, about, contact, and login, and as soon as I'm done clicking on them, then it's going to inject, change my inner HTML of my content, main content, to whatever I want it to be. And it has to be done asynchronously somehow, right? So that's going to be our challenge for tomorrow. Okay, guys, I'll leave you with that. Again, look for two things happening tomorrow. One, as a recap, Lab 3 will be released, right? So it'll be all around Ajax. There'll be something for you guys to learn about Ajax, and as well as the midterm test number 2, which is test 2. That'll be released tomorrow, and it'll be due on Sunday. Okay, guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. I'll put this up on GitHub now.